Grizzlies fans, welcome home. The Grizzlies start a two-game home stretch tonight versus the Miami Heat. Joining me from Miami, if you could not tell from behind him, David Ramil. Thank you so much for being here today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on.
All right, I'm gonna set the game up real quick. Um, the Grizzlies have not won a game at home. The Miami Heat have not won a game on the road this season. There is a couple injuries for the Heat, nothing crazy. I know Jimmy Butler is day to day right now, but I think he's listed as probable. Caleb Martin, Jamal Cain for the Grizzlies. There's a lot of injuries, but it is going to look similar to the guys that they had in Portland, where they got their first win of the season just a few days ago. So let's talk about the road woes of the Heat. What has been going on?
Well, they were going through some injuries early on that not just Caleb, but also a couple guys missing time here and there. Jimmy missed all of the preseason for some alleged dental work that had to get done. So he didn't play a single minute during the preseason. And he just seems like he's rounding into form. The win against the Lakers on Monday night was arguably his best performance of the season, and he looked fully engaged. We know what Jimmy can do in the postseason, but this was the first game where we saw him seem to really rise to the challenge of wanting to face LeBron James and come out with a victory, and he looked fantastic in that showing. So I think it's a combination of those factors, not to mention some new roles for some players. Tyler Hero's taking on a bigger role. Bam Adebayo's also taking on a bigger role, and it was just a little bit of an adjustment period. So I don't think you can read too much into what's happened on the road over the last couple of games, and I'm more curious to see what happens now when Miami actually has 9 of their next 10 games on the road. They play 4, come back for 1, and then go on for another 5-game road trip. So it's going to be interesting for Miami over the next few weeks.
Kind of a brutal schedule. Wow. Okay,
Yes.
I want to bring up a few of the guys that you just mentioned. Number one is Bam Adebayo, because the Grizzlies, of course, without Steven Adams, Xavier Tillman, like they're very thin in that big man rotation. They obviously just got Biyombo in his, I guess technically his second game, but he only played like 1 second, like his first real game with the Grizzlies. Bam Adebayo, though, versus the Lakers had an absolutely unreal stat line: 22, 20, and 10. That's 20 rebounds, 10 assists. What in terms of in terms of matchups, because we've only seen Biyombo in a Grizzlies jersey for a few minutes. He did have a good game. The Grizzlies have only won with him playing, or went with him starting. What do you feel like that matchup looks like? Or do you think it's Jaren? Like, what do you think the best kind of big matchup is there?
Don't know that either of them really match up well with Bam at this point. And I have to also clarify, it's 22 and 19 because just minutes ago the NBA rescinded a rebound, so he was only credited with 19 rebounds, not 20. It's strange, but they went back
Horrible.
and checked it. Yeah, they took it away. He's very good in the mid-range game now, and that's a major strength of his, is that he'll rise up comfortably from 15 feet out. He'll knock those down pretty easily. Against slower centers like Biyombo, he'll take them and try and drive to the rim and finish with a strong dunk. He's a very good roller now in pick and roll situations, and he and Tyler, he and Duncan have a very good 2-man game going there. So I think there are a number of different ways that Bam could beat either option. So I think if you're going to start any of those two, it probably would be Jaren, because he's a little bit more mobile and he can certainly deflect a lot of Bam's shot opportunities with his length. So I think that's probably the better matchup, but that would put Biyombo probably on the more likely starting power forward with Haywood Highsmith. And he's kind of undersized, generously listed at 6'5", and he's more of a guy who can basically just catch and shoot from the perimeter. He's not really creating much offense. So I don't know if you want to put Biyombo out in an island there in the perimeter and then have, a variety of different breakdowns defensively. So that's kind of pick your poison for Taylor Jenkins. I'm not sure exactly how to play out, but I would imagine that Jackson would probably want that matchup against Bam directly.
Another matchup that I'm interested to see is you mentioned Tyler, and that's Tyler Hero, who's been shooting the lights out. The Grizzlies, though, defending the three, they are well, okay. Well, first off, the Heat are ninth in the league in 3-point percentage. The Grizzlies are allowing opponents almost 40% from the three, second worst in the league. Tyler Hero will be a big part of that tonight. How do the Heat take advantage of that?
Well, it's kind of 3-point by committee with them. Tyler's actually biggest strength, in my opinion, is more in the mid-range game. Like Tyler's shooting it well now from the perimeter, but he's on less attempts than he has historically throughout his career. They get a lot of opportunities for guys like Kyle Lowry, Haywood Highsmith, Duncan Robinson. They don't shoot a lot of threes, which is a big concern for myself and for a lot of Heat fans, is that they don't go to a weapon as often as they should in order to beat opponents. So it's a lot of, no pun intended, grinded out offense, milking the 24-second clock, a lot of slow. They near the least in the league in terms of field goal attempts and things of that sort. So Tyler is probably going to get more often than not to the mid-range when he's got the ball in his hands, but he'll also just pull up in transition and shoot it from 28 feet out comfortably. So we'll have to kind of monitor to see whether or not that shot's falling for him. He's going to take it, and especially in late shot clock situations when the ball's in his hands, he feels very comfortable taking that shot. So I would imagine you'll see a few of those opportunities as well.
Both of these teams, though, offensively, pretty low scoring teams, right? Like 108 points or less for both of them. I think they're both bottom 5 in the league in points per game. We talked about some of the scorers for you. We kind of glazed over Jimmy Butler, but the two big guys for the Grizzlies, Jaren Jackson Jr. and then Desmond Bane. Des had 30 points in the last game. He's been up around 30-ish the first 7 games of the season. Is there a Des stopper?
No, not really. I don't know if Jimmy's willing to take on that matchup directly. He went up against LeBron James on Monday, and he wanted that challenge, that opportunity. I don't know if he'll tell Eric Spoelstra before the game, put me on Bane, let me see how that works out. So that kind of leaves them with not many other options. I could see Haywood Highsmith kind of shifting under them because he's a very good mobile perimeter defender. He's switchable, he's strong enough, and he's got great length, and he's a really, really good defender. The next guy that Miami has just kind of found their magic with and been able to bring up from virtually nothing into a starting role now. So I think that might be a possibility too. I don't know how it'll play out because either guard right now, either Tyler Hero, Kyle Lowry, not much of a matchup there. They're going to get roasted by Desmond Bane. So I would expect some other option, either Jimmy or Highsmith, probably starting out there.
Oh, Kyle Lowry, another guy I forgot to talk about, a former Grizzly himself. Okay, let's end this by, I always have like 2 questions that I end with, so I'm just picking between them now. Okay, for you, I'm doing a specific stat. So let's go, David, fill in the blank. If the Heat do blank well, they will come out with the victory this evening.
Ooh, I think they'll have to shoot at least above 38% from 3, because that's usually what dictates for them a victory, is them being able to knock down shots with regularity. And especially if their perimeter game is opened up a little bit, that gives Bam, Jimmy, Tyler, everybody else the opportunity to get to the rim and create their opportunities there. So I think that's a big one for them.
Great. And as I mentioned, the Grizzlies allowing opponents to shoot 40% from 3. So hopefully they turn that around. On the Grizzlies side, I'm going to go with fourth quarter play. They ended that Portland game on a 26-2 run to get their first victory. I know the Heat led by 11 going into that fourth quarter against the Lakers that ended up being a 2-point game. And so I think a strong finish, and I know it's so cheesy to say a full 48, but a strong finish I think is going to help the Grizzlies. And I know you're oofing over there because it wasn't pretty in that fourth quarter.
It's been Miami's Achilles heel the whole season long. They've had big leads and they've kind of blown those away every game almost, with the exception of one game where most of their starters sat out and watched the bench unit led by Tyler Hero kind of lead a comeback against the Minnesota Timberwolves that ultimately fell short. But it's been a problem. I wouldn't be surprised at all if Miami led for 3.5 quarters and then just kind of let the game slip away in the end of the game.
I mean, David, thank you so much for coming on today.
Absolutely.
Grizzlies fans, like I said, this one tips off at 7 p.m. Make sure you're getting to FedEx Forum nice and early. This one is on Bally Sports Southeast if you are watching from home.